Hi, my name is Deborah. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting this easy beginner watercolor flower picture. So you just need some paper, paintbrush, paints, paper towel, and some clean water. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to start off by making some dots on the paper. This is a very, very simple way to do flowers. You just want to get some concentrated color and put dots in a circle. 5 dots. And that's all you need to begin with. Think about your composition and where you want your flowers to be and put your dots in that space. Make sure you leave enough space to do the petals around the dots. Once you've got your dots in the right place, you're going to wash out your brush. So you've just got clean water on it. And then you're going to pull the color out in the shape of your petal. Now, this can be as simple as like a triangle shape, or you can make it more jagged on the edge. It's totally up to you. Honestly, these are just sort of made up flowers. I couldn't even tell you what they are. I'm just making them up as I go along. But it's a very easy and simple way to do a flower if you're not knowing what to paint, or if you're new at watercolor and you're not really sure how to go about doing flowers. This flower, I'm making a side view, so I just want to do the little dots on one edge. Once I've pulled the color out with the brush, I'm gonna put a little dot of color back into that original spot. Because my paint is wet and I'm using a lot of water on the page, it's going to spread. Now, some paints do this better than others, and it also depends on what kind of paper that you have. So you're going to have to experiment with that. But if your paint is wet and your page is wet, you're going to have that lovely wet on wet technique, and it's going to spread along the petal, and it just gives it a really nice soft look. We want delicate looking flowers here. That's what I'm going for. I also want to add another color flower in here, so I decided to go with a yellow, and I want these flowers to be a little bit smaller than the red ones. I'm basically making them the same way though, although I'm putting less water on my brush this time. So the color that you see coming out with the yellow is going to be a little bit more concentrated than the red flower. I decided to add some smaller flowers here, more like buds. They haven't opened up yet. So those are literally just an elongated oval shape. I'm just dropping in a little bit more pigment. They're going to be nice and bright. You can play around with the shape of your flowers. Like I said, these are non-existent flowers. I'm just making them up. And so in the world of flower art, you can go ahead and make them whatever shape you want. That's the fun of painting and experimenting. You can do what you want on the page. And it's right. None of it's wrong. It's all right. Some color, just like I did before with the pink ones. So for this one, I chose more of an orangey color to blend with the yellow, but as you can see, it is not spreading quite as well. Now, my paint is wet, and so sometimes that will affect how the paint moves, depending on obviously how much water you have on the page. But also I have noticed that some colors for some reason just seem to spread out and blend better, even with the same consistently the same wetness on the page. So for whatever reason, these orange paints, the orange color in this palette anyway, didn't really want to spread. So I did end up pulling it through the yellow petal with the brush, just because I didn't want it being a solid dot at the end. I wanted to pull it through a little bit. So experiment with your colors, and you'll probably find too, no matter what the brand of the paint that you're using, you will have some colors that they're like fireworks. They do kind of explode, and other ones don't for some reason. I'm still figuring out what that reason is. I don't know. Here I'm just putting in some tiny lines. I'm using the same color that I did with the flower and just dropping in some tiny little lines around the middle. Before I add the next layer of petals, I need to make sure that the complete painting is dry. If you have time, I would recommend that you just leave it to dry naturally. I just want to get it done today. I don't have a lot of time, and so I'm using my hairdryer to speed the process up. Just be careful with the dryer that you don't blow the water outside of the space it is already, which can sometimes be done with a hairdryer, so just be careful with that. Okay, now that my first layer is dry, I'm going to add a second layer of petals the same way as I did the first layer. Now, I'm actually doing it two different ways. On this first flower, I am just drawing the petals on straight away with my wet paintbrush. And on the second flower, I'll do the dots first and then draw the petals on the same way I did the first one. I just wanted to see which one I liked better, and I think I actually like this second way better, by doing the dots first and then pulling the color out, as opposed to just using the wet paintbrush with a little bit of paint on like I did with the first flower. So you experiment, try both ways, see which one you like better. I'm then going to add a bit more pigment to this side flower, the red one. I just want it to look like the outside petals are a little bit darker in colour than the middle. Okay, so now I've changed my brush to a very small round brush, and I'm going to add the center of the flowers. I'm just mixing some red with some bluey purple color I already actually had on my palette, and I'm going to put the center of the flowers in. I just wanted them to be a little bit darker than the paint already on the page. So for the centers of these red flowers, I'm literally just doing tiny little dots in a circle shape, just to give that illusion of seeds in the middle of a flower. On my side view flower, I'm gonna draw in some little lines and then stick little dots just on the end of them. Very simple, very basic, but gives a nice effect. I'm also going to use the same purple color to drop in a little bit of a center on these yellow flowers as well. Okay, now it's time to add some leaves and some stems. So I've taken 3 different green colors here. I wanted the leaf to be a little bit darker, and so I've got a light green, a dark green, a more blue green, and then sort of an olive green that I'm mixing in until I find the right shade. I've also switched my brush here to a smaller dagger style brush, and again thinking about the composition of how you want the leaves to look. I'm drawing in some stems. I wanted, obviously, 2 different flowers are going to have 2 different leaves, so think about that when you're planning out in your head where you want the leaves to fall. Also, do you want the stems to join up as they reach the bottom of the page, or are each of the stems going to be separate? If you think about this before you start painting it in and have the composition already kind of in your head, that's going to help you when you get to this stage. So I'm just using my green and dropping in some leaves here. Sometimes I need to change the shape of them just a little bit. You decide where you want your leaves to be and just drop them in. I'm also adding a little bit more of the blue-green paint to the leaves. I just wanted a little bit more variation in the color of the leaves so they weren't so flat looking. Then I'm going to think about where the stems would reach the flowers, and obviously the stems are being hidden behind some of the flowers, so you're just going to do the little green lines to join them up behind the existing flowers on the paper. For the little yellow flowers, I switched out my brush to a small round brush, and then I wanted to also have a slightly different green for the leaves, and so I did a bit of a lighter green here. Now my first petals I do here, sorry, not petals, leaves. The first leaves I do, I'm not loving the shape of them. With the round brush, the trick to getting a leaf shape is you want to press down the belly of the brush and then lift up so that the tip creates a bit of an elongated shape at the end, and I didn't do a good job on these first ones. The rest get slightly better. I don't love this brush I was using, to be honest. But you know what, you use what you've got. If you don't have a dagger brush, you only have a round, or you only have a flat, figure out how it works. Make it work for you. You don't need to go and spend a lot of money on a lot of really expensive things to figure stuff out. That's the beauty of watercolor. Obviously, the better your brushes and paper and paint, you are going to have a better quality and probably enjoy the process a lot more, to be honest. But not everybody is in a position where they can just go spend a lot of money on a lot of paint stuff. And so just use what you've got. My advice would be to buy the best that you can afford and use that and enjoy that and figure out what works for you. You can still do a really decent painting with cheaper materials. Just make sure that you have a stem going to each flower. Otherwise you'll end up with one floating in the air. And if that's your style, then go for it. But if you do it on some of them, you kind of have to do it on all of them. So I'm just adding in a few more little leaves here. I just took a bit more concentrated yellow paint here and I'm just filling in these flowers just a little bit more. I felt like they needed a few little lines on each of the petals just to make them a little bit more defined. And I'm using paint straight from the palette pretty much. My brush is wet, but I don't have a lot of water on it because I don't want to create a big wet mess at this point. I just need a bit more pigment. So the last step here is to sign your work. I just usually put my initials. Actually, I always just put my initials on my paintings, but if you want to do your whole name, then go for it. Be proud of your work. No matter what it looks like, we're all learning together, right? So just be proud of it and put your name on. And then the last step, of course, is to take the tape off. Now, a little tip for you, if you just rip the tape off, even if you have put it on quite lightly, there's a good chance that your paper will rip. So I always use my hairdryer to just make the glue nice and warm and then slowly pull the tape off, and it should come off really easily if you do that. I have wrecked many a paper by just ripping the tape off before I was really ready, and so just give it a quick blast of hot air and it should come off just fine. Well, I hope that was useful for you. I would love to know how it went for you. Please drop a comment below and let me know how it went. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for being here.